create lasting impact. And today I have my special guest, one of his advocacy to own the room itself, none other than Mr. Jake Stahl.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. It's great to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Jake, Entrepreneurship 101. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure. So I was a sales trainer for 30 years. And for the past 13 years, I teach Neurostrategy, which is a combination of behavioral psychology, social psychology, and neuro-linguistic programming to create unforgettable messaging.
Unforgettable messaging. We like that, Mr. Jake. And today, let's talk about being a creator and Neurostrategy, isn't it? And of course, as the CEO itself. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Thank you for sharing your business. Your origin story includes emerging from the ashes of addiction for the front of behavioral training. When you were in the dark phase, was there specific conversation either with yourself or someone else in the planted the first seed of the idea that you could rewire how you think and act?
It was conversations with everybody that convinced me that it was happening. I was literally locked out of rooms that I used to be very welcomed in. I was a motivational speaker, spoke in several countries across 47 states. And when I was recovering from addiction, it was a time where nobody wanted to talk to me. And so I had to rewire the way I showed up. And that is where neurostrategy came from, is not just rewiring the way I spoke, but rewiring the way other people looked at me and viewed me. And that was probably the most important piece of the puzzle.
You describe yourself as a mind mechanic. That was fascinating metaphor. Was there a moment you felt completely broken down on the side of the road? And what is the first tool you pick it up to start rebuilding yourself?
Yeah, so after my addiction, I was really broken down on the side of the road. Uh, I went through a lot of desperation, lost everything, marriage, house, savings, you name it. And I think the thing that I hated the most was I would read magazine covers showing stars that were going through addiction, and there was an outpouring of sympathy. And there was no sympathy for me. This was back in a day where if you were addicted, you were pretty much a criminal. And it occurred to me that it wasn't that the celebrities were any better than I was, it's that they showed up differently. They had a different presence about them. And that's when I started to think that's what I need to rewire is my presence and the way I show up.
Very well said, Mr. Jake. You were trained leaders across 47 states and 6 countries, yet your approach is described by blending a boardroom precision with a smart or street smart empathy. Where did the street smart part come from, and how do you keep it in the rooms full of C suite executives?
Well, there's going to be 5 million new businesses that start this year. 5
Mm,
million new small businesses. By the end of 5 years, 90% of those will be out of business.
mhm.
And that means our business development and the way we communicate is broken. So my empathy comes from the fact that my father owned a small business for 30 years. And I think everybody has the right to own a small business and grow it because there's a lot of good ideas out there that just never make it because they don't communicate it well, they don't sell it well, they don't market it well. And my methodology, along with my company Orchestraight, is dedicated to helping those customers be
Mm.
heard.
Yes, certainly. Certainly to be heard. Let's talk about the operating system, Mr. Jake. You created NeuroStrategy as a battle tested operating system for human influence that blends adaptive psychology, behavioral economics, and elite communication. Why operating system? What does the framing allow people understand about human behavior and what they miss when they think it was just skills or techniques?
Yeah, we often talk about the fact that we need the proper verbiage. We need to be silver tongued. We need to have the perfect script. And the reality is, all we need to know is every human, or 90% of humans, work on pretty much the same operating system. We all respond to fear the same way. We all respond to failure the same way. We respond to certain behavioral triggers. We respond to certain conditioning. And the idea is if you want to communicate messaging that's remembered and that hits home for people, it's not always just the verbiage, it's the verbiage that's going to tack into the way they're programmed, how they respond to generosity, how they respond to fear, how they respond to loss. And if we can understand that, we can then use verbiage, uh, language, follow up that's going to hit close to where they actually make their decisions, which is not on the surface, it's underneath. I think we all have two profiles. We have one we show the world and one that makes all the decisions. And too
Mm.
often we talk to the profile that people put on LinkedIn, and that's not the profile that makes the decisions.
Indeed, that's another profile. People, you said that while everyone wants to think they're unique, most of us has a basic patterns in how we process information, communicate, and make decisions. What are the most common pattern you see that high performers are blind into themselves?
That most of our communication is body language. There's a lot of people that are in business that really get excited about the words they use and how they come across, but they neglect to talk about or to look at the body language that's being communicated. Some studies show that 80% of our communication is body language. So if we're ignoring that, we're ignoring 80% of the message. And that's a critical piece. If I'm talking with somebody on the phone and it's static 80% of the time, and then they come back on the phone and say, "Did you hear what I said?" The answer is going to be no. So if we do not understand that most of what is being said is nonverbal, we're missing the boat. And that's where high level communicators can often fail.
Very well said, Mr. Jake. Neurostrategy draws on behavioral and psychology, social psychology, decision science, and the NLP. When you're working with a skeptical client, someone who thinks physiology or psychology is soft, which is discipline do you reach for the first to prove that this hard science with measurable outcomes?
Well, and it's funny you ask that because where psychology is a provable science, it can be researched and looked at. Neurolinguistic programming is considered a pseudoscience. It's one you can't necessarily prove on paper, but when you look at it in practice, people like Tony Robbins have used NLP to transform millions of people. So, neurolinguistic programming basically speaks to the fact that we all have modes that we think in. Our directions we look when we're talking tell a story. We're programmed a certain way. We think a certain way. So when I talk with the client, first of all, when we're trying to determine where their problem is or if they have pushback, I use NLP to start.
NLP indeed. So let's talk about the architecture and conversation, Mr. J. You've known for the ability to create the perfect conversation, but perfect for whom? How do you balance serving your own objective while making the other person feel truly seen and heard?
My objective is to make the other person seen and heard. So when I'm in a sales conversation, any outcome should be literally the only logical outcome from our conversation. I don't ever use anything that I do to manipulate people. So when I have a conversation with somebody, my goal is to make them seen, heard, and make sure that whatever we decide on is mutually agreed to. Because NLP has a background and psychology has a background where some people can say you use it to manipulate people, you use it to come to the wrong ends. And that's just not the way I practice. So it's important that if you're dealing with a sales coach or somebody who's helping you, that they're highly ethical and that they are only doing what's right for both parties.
Very well said, Mr. Jake. You teach the 210 rule for active listening. Walk us through the recent conversation where consciously applied it. What did you hear that you would have missed before you had that framework?
Well, the 210 rule is pretty simple. So let me put it in context before we talk about what it is in practice. So the 210 rule basically says that for every 10 minutes somebody talks, you generate 2 minutes worth of questions in the other person. So your average 60-minute talks is going to generate about 12 minutes worth of questions. Many people, when they speak or lead a group, leave questions until the end. The 210 rule says to flip that around. For every 2 minutes you talk, check in with the other person to make sure they're following along. And at the end of 10 minutes, you ask if they have any questions. And what this does is this not only involves them, but it slows down your own pace in talking, forces you to stop and check in and listen, and it lets the other person know that you're listening as well, and it gives them ample opportunity to ask questions. So I have turned around entire sales teams just by having them understand, memorize, and use the 210 rule, because now they're actually paying attention to what's being said by their customers and they're gaining a new understanding of what the customer's needs are. So honestly, Daniel, I use the 210 rule in every conversation I have, whether it's with my wife, my kids, my business partners, or my prospects.
Mr. Jake, you've talked about the importance of future pacing, helping customers envision success before they buy. You use example of a cruise line selling the feeling of sun and connection, not the logistic of booking. What is the recent purchase you made where someone future pays you effectively, and how did it feel on the receiving end?
Commercials future pace me all the time because commercials
Mhm.
show me what it's going to be like for me to buy their product. And I love it. I like it because I want to know how my life is going to be different because I purchased their product or if it's going to be different. And if I'm being perfectly honest, if a commercial does not future pace me, if they just sell me on features and benefits, it's difficult for me at times to understand why I should buy their product in the first place. I joke with my friends when we watch the Super Bowl commercials, which ones future pace us and which ones don't. And it's a common practice. I talk about it in my book, Own the Room. We talk about how to transfer an idea so that people take it as their own. So you get people to picture themselves inside your solution and living with it so that they can understand the benefits that it's going to impart to them. So I think future pacing is very critical, and I love when people do it to me.
Very well said, Mr. Jake. You advocate for the 3 why approach to uncover real motivation. Can you share the story of a time you asked why 3 times and uncover something that surprised both you and the person you are talking to?
Yeah, I do this all the time in my discovery calls. And a great example is the weight loss. I had a friend of mine not long ago saying that they wanted to lose weight. And I was like, why do you want to lose weight? And when you ask the why 3 times, you force somebody to really dig into why they want something. And the person said to me, my doctor said that I should lose weight. It's like, well, you're not overweight. Why'd the doctor say that? Well, because my knees hurt. And I said, oh, well, do your knees hurt all the time? No, only when I'm sitting playing with my granddaughter on the floor and I want to stand back up again. So if I were a salesperson selling weight loss products, I wouldn't sell the loss of the weight. I would sell the benefit of being able to play with your granddaughter and get up pain free. So you're actually selling to the root cause of their problem, not to the problem itself. So if we're not asking those questions as business owners, what is the pain point our customers have, and we're not investigating it all the way down to the actual pain point, we're missing the boat.
Certainly, we're missing something. You founded Orchestrate as an AI driven platform that humanizes AI by integrating neuroscience and NLP principles. In an era where everyone is racing to automate, why was that important to you to that technology humanize rather than replace?
I've been doing the coaching on neurostrategy for 13 years. I do it with international clients and regular clients. And what I found was the more I described what I do to small business owners, the more I got the request to be available to them. And eventually I thought this would be a great idea for a SaaS product that somebody could just access anytime and use it so that they could create a better marketing piece or create a better sales pitch, or you can even role play with Orchestrate so that you can practice a sales call before you make it. So I embedded NLP, behavioral psychology, social psychology, and hook point theory into Orchestrate to make it literally the perfect communication machine.
Yes, indeed, the perfect machine. And you shared that Orchestrate user range from realtors to ghostwriters using platforms to write bios, role play calls, and communicate with investors. What is the most unexpected use case you've seen some applying Neurostrategy in a way you never anticipated?
We have several investment groups that use Orchestrate. And when they have to communicate with their investors, sometimes that can be really, really touchy. Like sometimes you have to be communicating bad news that the investment didn't go as well, or that more money is going to be needed in order to get to a certain investment level. So the investment firms are actually using Orchestrate to role play those tough calls with their customers before they make them so that they are more prepared for those types of calls. And it's surprising because we have a couple of firms that do that. And we get a text at least once a week saying how Orchestrate really helped them through a difficult conversation. And that was easily the most surprising use because we never anticipated people using it for that.
Well done, Mr. Jake. You describe Orchestrate as putting your business on the shortest path to success. For the founder who's been grinding for years and feels like they're going on in circles, but usually longest detour they're taking without realizing it.
The longest detour, and I've experienced this as a business owner myself, is you confuse activity with forward progress. So we keep doing the same things over and over again, hoping we're going to get a slightly better result. Or we do activities just to do them, and they're not really allowing us to move forward. The reason Orchestrate is the shortest path to success is because it's allowing you to create better messaging, to refine your value proposition, to further hone who your ICP is and the best ways to communicate with them. So when you're working in Orchestrate, you're progressing your business. You can do discovery calls, you can do research, you can analyze transcripts to see where you may have lost a sale. So Orchestrate allows you to get back on track and start moving your business forward without doing activities just to do activities.
Mr. Jake, you warm against dropping a generic book time here, a calendar link suggesting instead, would it make sense to talk live? That's a small linguistic shift. What is the neurological difference in how the brain processes those two invitations, I should say?
Yeah, so when you're doing an invitation, many people just drop in a calendar link. And what you're doing is you're taking away choice of the other person. And as much as that sounds kind of woo woo, it really
Mm.
does make a lot of sense. When we're business owners and when we're busy people, we want to have the choice. So when I say to somebody, does it make sense to connect live? It's giving them the choice and at the same time making the suggestion that this would be the best way to get together. I think one of the important things we miss is that when we write an email or when we write a DM or a text, we're not the ones writing that. It's being written in the head of the person reading it. And they're reading it based on the type of day they had. Are they angry, happy, inquisitive, cynical? So it's incumbent upon us as business owners that when we write something, we take that into consideration when we send it. Because even a benign message on our part could be construed poorly on the other side. And if we write our messages with that knowledge, it's amazing how we can change outcomes. When I write that in an email, would it make sense to connect live? I would say I have a 95% hit rate with people saying, yeah, it would make sense. Send me your calendar link.
Mr. Jake, you talk about how a head shop with a real smile and authentic posture build trust before a word is spoken. If you could redesign how professionals present themselves visually beyond just headshot, what's one thing you should change?
I would say that you said besides the headshot,
Yes, please. Or
I
beyond.
would say it would have to be genuine. In other
Mm,
words, don't be so professional. We talk about how, it needs to be a suit and tie or a dress, and it doesn't need to be, it just needs to be you. The most important piece of it is your posture. And by far the most important part of it is the face, because we are wired to analyze a face, expressions, and we're wired to analyze posture. So be yourself in whatever you're dressing in, but really pay attention to your headshot because that is everything. People make decisions every day on whether they're going to contact you based on your headshot. And that's not me saying that. This is proven in research that a headshot can literally keep people from reaching out and contacting you.
That's why, Mr. Jake, you're so lively when the first time I see you on the camera. This is the first guest that I saw. You're so lively, lively. Oh my goodness. You work help leaders to stop reacting and start engineering results. But engineering implies control and humans are messy. What is the recent moment where you caught yourself reacting instead of engineering, and what did you learn from it?
I catch myself becoming emotional all the time. And the thing I learned from becoming emotional is that I cannot write a communication while I'm emotional. And I've done
Mm.
this many times over my life where I have written an email or a DM when I am in the heat of battle or I'm really feeling it. And it's been a mistake because the next day I've looked at it and said, I really shouldn't have written that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I tend to become more conscientious now than I would have even 2 years ago, is catching myself mid emotion. I was told by a mentor, never make a decision when you're really happy or really sad or angry.
Angry.
You should only make
Yes.
decisions when you are in like an even keel mood, not too high, not too low. And I have found that to be absolutely brilliant advice.
Correct. Yes. Totally, people. Don't decide something when you're happy, angry, or sad. it will lead to something else. So, Mr. Jake, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, sure. So I have a book out. My book is called Own the Room: How to Communicate to Be Seen, Heard, and Respected. It talks about my communication method that I baked into Orchestraight. I also have a podcast called Own the Room with Jake Stahl. You can catch the live episodes there. And you can reach me at Own the Room with Jake Stahl on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Jake Stahl because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come, more and more empowering episodes of the podcast, and for sure, more and more empowering business will rise. So, Mr. Jake, I have one more question. You've trained thousands of professionals, but you also emphasize bringing Neurostrategy home using same principles to be more present with family. What is one tactic you use at home that would surprise the sales teams you train?
I listen more than I talk. And many, many times we have people that think if I just talk enough, if I say the right thing, it's going to go well. So at home, I listen way more than I talk. And I find that it has made for much better outcome.
Yes, people, listen, and let's talk. So you've set your mission to help the next generation of leaders outsmart assumptions, outlast obstacles, and outperform the noise. When you look at the leaders coming up behind you, what is the one piece of advice you hope they remember when things get started?
You're going to make mistakes. Enjoy them. They shape who you are. Don't ever regret a mistake. Just learn from it and move forward. I think that's the biggest thing. We think if we read enough books, watch enough YouTube videos, we're going to get everything right. And I can promise you, you won't. Just learn the lesson, take it with you, and don't do the same mistake twice.
Yes, and let it go, people. Let it go. Life is too short. Mr. Jake Stahl, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Monica, people, see you soon.